call tonight's meeting to order. Can I have roll call?
Mr. Antoine?
Here.
Ms. Bonnet?
Here.
Mr. Crowner?
Here.
Dr. Demas is absent with notice. Mrs. Zachors?
Here.
I'm here. Mr. Young?
Here.
If we can rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Motion. Support.
Moved by Young, supported by Antoine. Any questions, concerns, or changes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I have public comment, but I didn't receive any sheets. Seeing none, we will turn it over to Dr. Robinson to introduce our presentation for the night.
If you could just introduce you guys, yourselves, and then.
Sounds good. So I know we're not unfamiliar faces. Franco Felino and Miss Donna Foland will be presenting for tonight. Before we get into the meat of the presentation, we also like to give out some thank yous. So first and foremost, thank you to the board. I know schedules are difficult to align. You worked around my schedule, you worked around Donna's schedule, so thank you for declaring a special meeting and hearing us tonight. We'd also like to thank the Fort County Community Foundation for being our fiduciary partners. We would also like to thank the Village of Romeo, specifically the board and the trustees. And they've been a supportive and listening ear throughout this entire process, and we've got a couple of them here tonight. Thank you. Also like to thank our supporters, volunteers, donors, everyone who's pledged that shares the vision that we have for this green space on Prospect Street. Okay, just a review, and I know we've talked about this previously, but the GSOP's vision for the lot on Prospect Street, the 4.5 acre public green space, which will be preserved in perpetuity. It welcomes everyone. It's universally accessible. It's fiscally and environmentally sustainable. Low maintenance, low cost improvements, native landscape, native tree arboretum, mowed open play space, places to socialize, exercise, relax, green infrastructure to manage stormwater, educational resource. It honors the property's history and complements the historic village.
All right, now I would like to tell you why we think green space is such a great idea for this property. And first of all, this Trust for Public Land has sort of pioneered this idea that every citizen should be within a 10-minute walk of a park. So for this shows like the 10-minute walk area of the 297 Prospect Street. There are 619 households in that area, about 1,300 people, which is approximately a third of the population of Romeo. And within there, you know, we have households that are below the poverty level. We have households that, you know, report having one or more persons with a disability. So we have a fairly diverse group, not a huge median household income, $58,000. I'll also note the Romeo is identified as by the White House Council on Environmental Quality as a Justice 40 community, being underserved and also being overburdened by pollution, which creates some really nice, interesting grant opportunities. So a fairly diverse population that is well served by having this green space within a 10-minute walk. And if you look at the other area parks within Romeo and lay them all out on that map, you know, that sort of completes the map so that everybody has access to that. So the creation of a equitable public open space and park system is one reason why we think this is such a great opportunity. And having that green space within a 10-minute walk of your home also makes it a great place to live. It's quality of life. And quality of life is an economic driver. So that's good for the community. If you think about great cities like Minneapolis or cities nearby like Royal Oak, you think of, there's always a park around the corner or a green space around the corner. And so, employers, companies with businesses are attracted to that. It attracts new families, new residents with their families, and those families with kids are important to the school district. And this, this is a cycle that we can use to build the quality of life in our community and help it to grow economically. And another good reason, a very important reason, green space promoting health and wellness and providing spaces for children to play. All the things that help you to be healthy if you have access to it and have it nearby. And like when we talked about the 10-minute walk, having it where you can access it easily, you don't have to drive to it. And the sorts of experiences that make you healthier, open space to run and play with your kids. Independence that children learn when they're running around and exploring. Intergenerational experiences, older people and younger people having experiences together. Socialization, and also a place to just be quiet. All of these help us to be healthier. Another reason is to provide essential and adaptable infrastructure. You're probably familiar with the little picture there of the flooding issue that we had a couple years ago, and the hard infrastructure that the school district put in place for that to correct that. We can look at green infrastructure solutions so that the water, the runoff down that hill is filtered. Planting trees, which will help with the sort of dispelling the urban heat effect, native plants, and all of these are things that folks can learn from and have a more rich environment. And also I was just, Kathy Dickens at the Community Foundation just sent me a grant opportunity for Justice 40 communities to look at federal grants for improving infrastructure to be resilient to climate change. So there's some really nice opportunities there. And then we promote that the property on Prospect Street always be a place of learning. So you see the picture from 1937 of the school principal at the time, planting trees with the students. I don't know if that's one of the trees that's on the property now. But we could, as we move forward, planning improvements, how the property is planted, any of the low-cost maintenance improvements, how could we wrap this in with your curriculum, make it available to, libraries, that sort of thing. It has a marvelous history, starting with the Dickinson Institute back in 1855 up till 2021. And it could continue that history, and we would really like to promote that idea. So those are several reasons why we are recommending and think green space on Prospect Street is an amazing idea.
Did you want to talk to this?
Yep. Okay. I'm going to, I had missed the slide the first time I sent it out, so I'm going to add that now. I want to talk about our long-term vision for GSUPs. So we do not see our role in the community ending with the acquisition and preservation, which is our goal here, of 297 Prospect Street. We are talking with Fort County Community Foundation about establishing a Green Space Romeo Special Interest Fund, and then continue fundraising to support improvements to green space and stewardship of green spaces throughout the whole community and not just limited to this property. The types of services that we would like to be providing through our group and our partnerships would be to continue the fundraising in partnership with the Community Foundation, to be able to provide direct funding for projects, matching funding for grant projects. We organizing public support for our public green spaces, volunteer supports for stewardship, and then we've got lots of professionals on our team that we can bring technical support to the table, grant writing, planning, that research, that sort of thing. So we would love to see this vision continue into the future.
So the milestones that we've experienced, what's brought us here today, so we can look back, and we've talked about already, this property's been used as an educational space for nearly the last 2 centuries. Started with the Dickinson Institute, Romeo High School, Romeo Junior High School, and then Romeo Middle School. And then 2021, we're all aware that the middle school was demolished. In October of 23, that's when GSOPs actually formed, and we set the goal of raising the $500,000 by the June 1st mark, coming up here in a couple weeks. In November, the Board of Education resolved to pause the ongoing RFP process. And then in January, the Village Council resolved to support the GSOP's efforts and consider being the municipal partner that will need to execute our plan. And then in February, we partnered with, GSOPs partnered with the 4 County Community Foundation to be our fiduciary partner.
So where are we now? I'm going to give you an update on our fundraising and our public engagement. So engagement-wise, we have an email list of over 300 addresses that grows daily and weekly. We have monthly community meetings. Those are attended by 40 to 50 people. We have a pretty good following on Facebook with, over the last 2 months, a reach of 15.9, which is 1,000, which is all of the shares and forwards and that, and then a 1.4 thousand contact interaction, which is all of the likes and comments and that sort of thing. What we have upcoming for engagement, lots of people agree. We've used the tagline, "This place matters," because this place matters very, very much to us. It's not just an empty place where buildings used to be. It's a place with a huge history and that people feel very engaged with. So we have, as we gather with at our community meetings and with individuals, we get a lot of stories. And so we have started collecting StoryCorps style interviews and recordings. Later on in May, we're going to be sharing those on our website and on social media. And people have some great stories to tell. We have got a couple people that actually went to the high school that we're hoping that we can get a conversation with them. Haven't quite nailed those yet, but and then also at our last event, we collected a lot of stories also. So we'll let you know when that comes up. Fundraising. We have, it says 335,500. We have 337,000 at this point in pledges, donations, and event revenue. We get $100, $500, $1,000 pledges in on a daily basis. It's those large business donations are what will get us across the finish line. And our fundraising was kicked off with a $150,000 challenge pledge from Heidelberg Chevrolet, which we're immensely appreciative of. The pledges and donations we have at this point, 112 individuals, families, and businesses, counting the ones that I logged today. Folks are coming from Romeo, Bruce, Washington, and we're also hearing from folks outside of our 3 communities. People who have family connections or have a history of having gone to the schools here and are interested in being part of the project. This brings us to 67% of our 500K goal, which we still intend to reach, and we feel that we're on a good path to do that. We have a lot of momentum. So what's coming up, we're working on a targeted outreach to businesses in the Romeo, Bruce, and Washington area. We've got our local restaurants. We're scheduling some green space benefit days where a portion of the proceeds will come to into the GSOPs fund at the Community Foundation. And I just got a note a few days ago that the annual Romeo Porch Fest decided that the proceeds that they collect at their event every year is going to come to GSOPs. So lots going on. I'm going to tell you about we have 2 big events. Our Gray House Major Donor Evening was in March. That was attended by 80 people. We raised $80,000. Had some really nice coverage from the Macomb Daily. And that was the event that kicked off our fundraising. And just almost a month ago, we had our This Place Matters benefit, and that was at the Abbey on Main. It was attended by 200 people. We raised $30,000, and we focused on the history and cultural value of the property. We had a historian there that did a special presentation about the property, the schools, and other aspects of it through time. And we asked people to share their stories at that event. All right, so the thing that we really are all looking forward to talking about is how do we get this done? So we have some suggestions that we would like to share with you that may be useful to your discussion. First of all, the Fort County Community Fund, our fund agreement is what is going to be kind of a guiding light for us. This is setting the purpose of the funds that we are collecting. And I'll note that, we have been pulling in mostly pledges, not direct donations, because once the money goes into the community foundation, it stays there. And so until we've been telling people we'll collect those pledges once there is, a contingent purchase agreement in place. And then they get all of the tax benefits of donating to the community foundation. But that sets the purpose of the funds for creating the green space. So here are some outcomes that we would like to suggest. The primary outcome that has been the discussion as we've been working with the village and other folks is that, first of all, we successfully meet our fundraising goal. And that the Board of Education, the village, the community foundation work together towards a purchase agreement that's contingent on the funding. And then we fulfill those pledges to the community foundation. And then we're suggesting potentially a 3-month frame concluding in September to get all of that work done, all of the legal and other review that needs to be done for all the parties to get to that point, because you've got 3 parties at the table to close on this. Potential alternative outcomes. Here's one that's kind of interesting, is a purchase of development rights, which is we use the money collected by GSOPs and the community foundation to actually purchase the development rights on the property. Another party to be determined would hold a conservation easement, and the Board of Education could retain title. This would also be kind of neat, because then we could really hone in on that educational focus for the improvements. A couple other potential scenarios, and this would probably mean if we were short of that fundraising goal, whatever that end goal is going to be, is a phased acquisition. We could purchase the larger parcel and then continue to fundraise to acquire the 2 remaining parcels. Or a phased payment, we secure the property with the funds we've raised and then agree upon a payment plan for remaining amount. So those are some suggestions of how we could finish this up.
So some of the remaining questions that we have to funnel into the outcomes, we need to figure out what the final cost of the property is going to be. We've talked about the $500,000 figure, and I know there have been question marks surrounding, well, how did we come to $500,000? And honestly, GSOP selected that value because it was something that we felt was attainable and something that the public could get behind and fundraise for. What we need to know is, what does the Board of Education consider as fair compensation for the property, or whatever alternative outcome the board might feel like we should pursue. What is that value, and what are the factors going into determining that value? Another question that we have are the long-term costs. So we've done some thinking about what the long-term costs might be for this property as a green space. But specifically, it's going to be for the municipal partner in the future, so they can understand really what they're getting into. The village needs to know what the board has been spending on this property, so they can really make an informed decision on what they are going to have to do with it moving forward. And we'll request that information moving forward on maintenance costs, any existing infrastructure from the board. So that brings us to our request for tonight. We are requesting from the board, approval of a time extension that is commensurate with whichever course of action the Board of Education prefers. Donna mentioned the 1st of September a couple of slides ago. Perhaps if we go with outcome 1, 3 months is suitable. We're also requesting the dollar amount for what the board deems as reasonable for the property and for GSOPs. And we're also going to be requesting the information that I just requested about the long-term maintenance and upkeep for the property. So with that, this concludes our presentation. Again, we would like to say thank you very much for making time, holding a special meeting to hear from us. And at this time, we'd like to ask, are there any questions?
I have a few, but I know, Dr. Robinson, you said you'd prefer that we meet and
Yeah, I think
And
if
do
there's
them
gonna
on
be a
paper?
series of questions, I think it would be best served for the group that we put them on paper and give them to them and allow them the opportunity to respond. Because some might take more time than, I don't wanna put you on the spot, I
But
guess.
this is also an open meeting, so we should be asking the questions in an open meeting. It was public, people are here, they want to hear the questions. Let's hear the opinion of the board, what your thoughts are on this subject. President, where do you stand on this? You said nothing.
Mr. Welch, with all due respect, if you understand how this board works, we work as
I
a 7
absolutely
collective
understand.
group. And so it is very important for us to figure out as a group, because what we do at this table
You are
is
an
based on that.
elected- You are elected.
Lou, I'm not
individual
going
and
to
have-
engage right now. This is their time, so you're kind of stealing the thunder. And if Ms. Ikorst wants to list off the questions, that's up to you.
I mean, some of them you probably would need time to go back and
Yeah,
answer.
we'll
They're
be happy
not
to
something you
spend
can
some time,
answer on the spot, so.
Answering questions in depth.
But, do you want me to, I can just kind of rattle off a few. Some of it you somewhat answered, but my question was, what is your plan for maintenance? Because obviously someone needs to mow the grass and all of these, the trees and things like that. Beautiful idea, but who's gonna maintain it? Probably my biggest question is this Justice 40 community grant opportunity, and this is probably a question you definitely can't answer on the spot, but what are the strings attached to that? Because anytime government gives you money, there's always strings attached, so that's something I would want to hear more about. Is it gonna be something where that grant is gonna require the village or the district to have certain requirements in the future?
Yeah. And
So that was my big
may I-
question.
May I respond briefly, or should I wait?
Sure.
Okay, well, first of all, about the long-term costs, that's our long-term goal is to provide support for that maintenance. And we definitely see, everybody has lots of terrific ideas about what to do there. It will be very phased, and I imagine it's gonna look the way it looks now for a couple of years. And so we would like to, establish that fund, continue to fundraise it, and to support the stewardship of the property with money and with volunteers. But understanding those costs because, once it's owned by the community, it's their responsibility. So we're working on developing those cost estimates and also what we're focusing on lower maintenance, lower cost improvements, what those would cost also. Your other question is, we would not be the fiduciary for a grant because we're not a nonprofit. And this needs to be a partnership, so it would be whoever owns the property, probably with the community foundation. And we're certainly able to support, grant development and implementation, but everybody would understand what the stipulations are. And you're right, a grant brings can bring a lot of burdens.
Do you have a host,
And OST.
a municipality?
We have been talking with the Village of Romeo.
Is that,
They have said, their resolution has said they are willing to consider acquisition of the property.
willing to, okay.
Yeah, if if the money's in place, if the agreements are in place, and you know, I feel like if we provide sufficient information about, so everybody understands what they're getting into, is a real important part of that also. But, you know, we feel they've been with us all the way. You know, but they'll need to make that decision, you know, on their own behalf, of course.
Just, has there been any progress or initial conversations with the village as far as rezoning the property and how they feel about that?
We have had none.
Okay.
I know that has been mentioned to us, but I can't speak to the process. I mean, my experience with municipalities is that I don't know if you rezone people's property without
Right.
them being involved, so.
Right. I just know that if you're planning to make it a green space, eventually that process is
Oh,
gonna
that would
have to
be-
take place.
Yep.
And are you doing that and starting the initial talks with that to see what it takes to get that done?
I will make sure that we discuss it.
Okay.
But certainly the first phase of that is the clarity from the four-county community fund that those monies are for the creation of green space and not for anything else. You know, but yes, I would expect that would be followed with the rezoning.
Can you restate that? Just, I'm not sure I followed what you mean by.
So, I mean,
So 4 counties still has to take some sort of action? Is that what you're saying?
the money will go into the community foundation, and the purpose of the money is for creating a public green space at 297 Prospect Street. So
Okay.
the purpose of the money, so if we're worried about, I mean, that should deed restrict the property. That it's for a public green space, not for private development or,
And you said
Commercial.
deed restrict.
mhm.
Okay.
And is that contingent on rezoning? Because currently it's residential zoned.
I mean, a deed.
If I could, I don't believe rezoning is required in the residential area because a park is considered special land use in R1. So I don't believe there would be any rezoning required for that.
And I will echo that because I work.
Interesting.
I work for Oakland County Parks, I'm the chief of planning, and we have property that is zoned residential.
Sorry to speak out there.
No, I won't.
Can you tell us who you are?
I'm Justin Parker, village resident.
So what is the property zone right now, residential,
R1.
R1.
R1? Okay.
Do you know under that though, if a developer could come in and potentially sue the village because it's not zoned something different? So that's, that would be my concern, that you would go through all this trouble and that's not something we can answer, that's something the village has to answer. So do you have assurances from them, through this process that you feel like you can go forward in good faith and trust?
I think that's where the deed restriction comes in.
Okay.
If we deed restrict it at the time the acquisition is, the transfer is made. And that's what, creating the purchase agreement and having, your attorney involved and the community foundation's attorney involved and the village to make sure we get at that.
So attorneys do have to be involved,
Yeah.
just to
Do you-
state that.
Are you represented by an attorney?
We are not, but we are, the money is going to come from the Fort County Community Foundation and they have
Oh,
an
I see,
attorney.
I see.
Mhm. And we plan to work with other experts, like, brokers and other experts to look at, make sure that, we all need to look at this very carefully and make sure we're getting the outcome we want.
You mentioned that the fund, the 4 counties, would give grant money and it's used for green spaces. So would there be some stipulation in there that it would just be for that green space and that the village could not take it then and use it for other parks that they already have established?
So this fund has not been established yet. It's a new fund that we are planning to set up. And we're going to call it Green Space Romeo. So that, and in conversations with the village, this was really important to the community, that we want to address green space needs. We don't want to build ball fields and, you know, big playgrounds, you know, but there are other properties in the township, in the village, and, you know, potentially in the larger area that, you know, could use support. So we would continue to fundraise for that purpose, and it would be very clear it's, I mean, we want to invest in this property, but we're not focused only on this property.
So the elephant kind of in the room is much like when people say, I've talked to a board member. We can only take action when we sit here as a board and take action. So, like, has the village taken any action other than saying, go fundraise, you know, we wish you well? Because we went and spoke to them directly to say, your residents don't want this. You know, we're pausing, like, show us where you're at. And that's, I'm just wondering,
What we have with the village is the resolution that they would consider. And, you know, we certainly have the interest of individual board members. I don't know if either of you want to speak to that, but.
I wouldn't want to put you on the spot, just like I wouldn't put us on the spot individually, because it's when you come together that you make those decisions. So that's,
Yeah, and, you know, our discussion now, the discussion that you have, that, you know, we get your questions and your thoughts, you know, I make a presentation every month to the village board, and, you know, your, intent to explore this further with us should, you know, hopefully, maybe that would bring the village forward. I know it's gonna give our fundraising a big kick to know that, you know.
Thank you for all your hard work. I want to back up just a smidge, because I think I might have missed something. I heard we're not focused only on this property with our fundraising. Can you, I don't mean to imply anything.
No, you're
I
welcome.
just heard that, and I'd like that explained a little bit.
I think that the confusion here is confusion that I created.
Yeah.
Because we want to make it clear that we have a long-term interest in the community, that we're not gonna just drop off. And right now, we are only fundraising for this property. But in the future, when we establish that longer-term Green Space Romeo fund, we wanna be open to investing in other green spaces. You know, stewardship, it would probably be,
I see.
yeah,
I see.
so that's.
So like forming a nonprofit of your own, potentially, or,
We would continue to work through the community foundation.
oh, I see,
Yeah,
okay.
and it would be what they call a special interest fund, and which is what we have now with the Green Space on Prospect Street Fund, is a special interest fund
Special interest.
that will dissolve in a year. You know, if, you know, if we don't, do this, so.
and I know you said this, but right now people have or have not put money into that.
We're encouraging people to pledge,
Pledge.
rather than put
Okay.
money in directly.
Okay, so there isn't money there, and the whole dissolving in a year means,
If, the fund, and why don't I forward the full funding and fund agreement to you?
Okay.
Money that goes into the four-county community fund, the special interest fund, once it goes in there, people can't have it back.
right,
So, however, I mean, it doesn't disappear, then that money is gonna get moved into the Romeo, specific Romeo fund. And then they would be able to make grants out
So
of it.
pledges are safer for your pledgees.
Yeah.
Is there a guarantee on your pledges? Or like a handshake agreement, sort of?
We have documentation, and we keep in constant contact with
I see.
everybody, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel good about them, I know it's gonna be a bit of work. Not collecting the larger ones will be a little easier, but we've got a bunch of little ones that we're gonna have to chase around, so
Yeah.
we wanna overshoot our goal if possible.
Thank you.
any other questions?
Thank you very much for your discussion.
Well, just so you know, what our intention of coming tonight was to listen, obviously, formulate questions. We'll definitely have more questions. We're planning to meet with our legal counsel, who's also heard this whole presentation as well, so she can direct us as to, you know, some things that remember, we have to protect the full district. I mean, that's what we're responsible for, is the financial stewardship of the school district, so.
And we're very respectful of that.
Right, and we know that, it has been easily communicated. So our goal would be to do that. To put anybody's mind at ease, we're not looking at anything like we're selling the property when we come back out, that's not happening. But there could be a decision on time, as your first request was, so you're welcome to hang out here, because I'm sure the sooner you know that information, the better. If in fact you don't want to hang out here and we do make that decision, obviously we come out and we do that publicly, but I'm sure, I have Franco's phone number, and we could call you immediately.
Stay around.
Yeah, but you can hang out, as long as you want. I don't anticipate us being in there forever. So, but that's what our goal is for the night, and then we'll go from there. So we do appreciate it. It's been good, long time coming, glad it's gotten to this point, and, only good things can come.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I have a motion,
Motion.
to go into closed session?
Motion.
Support.
Okay, moved by Rice, supported by Antoine. Can I have roll call, please?
Mr. Antoine?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonner?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mrs. Ikorst?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Young?
Yep.